Madam Chair, we are now live.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town of Ajax Committee of Adjustment meeting for Wednesday, June 29, 2022. This meeting of the Committee of Adjustment is being held electronically and live streamed on the internet due to the COVID-19 emergency and requirements for physical distancing. No in-person attendance is permitted at this meeting. All regular practices and procedures of the committee continue to apply during this electronic meeting. If we encounter any technical difficulties, we may take a brief recess while they are resolved. Thank you for your patience, and we will now proceed with the meeting. So before we move on to the application portion of the meeting, I would like to confirm whether there are any disclosure of interest from the members of committee.
No. There is none.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm going to ask for adoption of the minutes from the May 25th, 2022 meeting, please. Okay, Mark, do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Cecil. Any discussion at all for the meeting, for the minutes, sorry?
No.
Nope, seeing none. Okay, can I please take a vote for all those in favor? Okay, so we are carried. Fourth item on the agenda, I am going to outline the general mandate of the Committee of Adjustment. The committee is bound by the Planning Act to assess each application based upon its ability to meet the four tests: that the application is minor in nature, is desirable for the appropriate development or use of the lands, and finally is in keeping with the general intent and purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The process for tonight's meeting will be conducted in the following manner. The applicant and or agent will be called upon, and at their option, they may provide a brief description on the minor variance application they have applied for. The committee members may ask questions of the applicant and or agent, after which anyone with direct interest in the application will be given the opportunity to speak either for or against the application. Once a motion is put forward by a committee member, there will be no further input from the applicant or anyone having interest in the application. After a decision is made, notice will be sent out and there will be a 20-day appeal period. Anyone having interest in the application may appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal within 20 days of the decision of the committee. After 20 days, the decision will become final and binding. If a building permit or other approvals are required, they may be filed during the appeal period. However, no building permits will be issued until the appeal period is over and the decision becomes final and binding. A respectful decorum during this evening's proceedings is expected of all present at all times. I am now going to introduce the committee. We may have one of our committee members. Oh, he is here. Hi, Wasif. I'm just going to go back quickly and just confirm. Do you have any disclosures of interest at all?
No disclosure, and I'm fully supportive of the adoption of the minutes, Madam Chair.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so on the committee tonight, we have Wasif Ahmed, Cecil Romanoff, Mark Pavlak, and myself, Lori Roberts. I am the chair. Eric Simpson is from staff. He is our senior planner and secretary treasurer. And Sarah Moore is behind the scenes working the magic. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the application portion of tonight's meeting. We have 3 applications. We are going to start with application A32-21 for 56 Ontario Boulevard being submitted by Battery Management. The variances requested are to permit a maximum lot coverage of 42% and the bylaw is 20. To permit a minimum setback from the front lot line of 8.8 meters and the bylaw is 15 meters. to permit a minimum setback from the west interior side lot line of 1.2 meters and a minimum setback from the east interior side lot line of 2.5 meters, and the bylaw is 6 meters. And finally, to permit a minimum setback from the rear lot line of 5.6 meters, and the bylaw is 15 meters. Eric, can I please confirm if notice was served and if we had any responses?
Notice was served and there were 3 pieces of correspondence in support, which were provided to the committee. Outside of that, we did receive some general inquiries, but no other correspondence.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. For the applicant, staff has written a report recommending approval of this application subject to 5 conditions. The conditions are that the subject variances apply only to the property municipally known as 56 Ontario Boulevard and as generally illustrated on the drawing submitted with this application, or this decision shall become null and void. 2, that the owner applicant maintain the existing drainage on the property, or this decision shall become null and void. 3, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary permits from the Central Lake Ontario Conservation Authority and satisfy all requirements such as entering into the necessary agreements to be registered on title, or this decision shall become null and void. 4, that the owner applicant obtain a tree cutting permit from the town of Ajax for any trees proposed to be removed, covering all requirements, financial and otherwise, to the satisfaction of the town of Ajax, or this decision shall become null and void. And finally, 5, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here?
Good evening, members of the committee.
Hi. Can I confirm that you received a copy of the report?
Yes, I can confirm we received a copy of the report and we have reviewed these noted conditions.
Okay, and if I can ask you to please introduce yourself and let us know any questions or comments that you have in regards to the application.
Yes, absolutely. So my name is Paul Demchek. I am the planning consultant on behalf of the applicant for 56 Ontario Boulevard in Ajax, and I'm with Vittori Urban Planning and Management.
Okay, and do you have anything you want to say in regards to the application before we get to asking questions?
So I have prepared a brief presentation just for the benefit of the committee. If I may share my screen.
Sure. Sorry.
I think I have to be.
Sorry, I was just pulling up your presentation for you, Paul. Did you want me to transition your slides, or would you like to share your screen?
Yeah, that'd be great if you could share it.
Sure, just one moment.
Thank you so much. So we can probably start on slide 2. Okay, perfect. So as the committee may already be aware, the property is obviously located on the south side of Ontario Boulevard, and it currently consists of a single-story detached dwelling. And my client is looking at demolishing the existing dwelling on the property, as well as constructing a new 2-story single detached dwelling. I will note, just for the benefit of the committee, my client has for approximately the last year and a half, we've been working with CLOCA, Durham Health, as well as the town of Ajax on the proposed development, which includes a detailed review of a number of reports, including geotechnical, slope stability, the associated septic approvals, as well as obviously the planning related matters, among others for this property. Next slide, please. Just in terms of the existing conditions, so obviously the site borders Lake Ontario to the south of the property. It has approximately 15.3 meters of shoreline. And obviously it contains the existing one-story detached dwelling, which, as you can see from this existing plan of survey, it is quite awkwardly sited on the property in terms of its current configuration, as shown in this slide. I will note that obviously the property, in terms of its side yards, you can see there's a couple pinch points just in terms of how it's currently sited. As well as you will note the existing front and rear yard, just existing conditions. Next slide, please. So as already noted, there's a total of 4 variances being sought. Obviously the side yard setbacks for each one being sought as well. I won't repeat them, but I would like to go through them just for the benefit of the committee as part of my summary. Next slide, please. So this is the site plan for the proposed siting of the house. I will note that the proposed 2-story dwelling is intended to be sited with an identical rear yard setback as what the current condition is of the property. So there's no further extension of the dwelling closer to Lake Ontario, as well as the existing side yards are intended to align with what is currently on site, although they are essentially inverted. So we have obviously a 2.5 and then a 1.5 meter side yard condition for, 1.2 meter side yard condition for each of the side yards. A number of variances are obviously required on the property due to its country residential zone. I will note that obviously the existing dwelling that exists in the property does not comply with the zoning bylaw requirements for this country residential zone. Neither do most of the properties along Ontoro. It's a pretty unique condition, and any redevelopment of the property would trigger minor variances. For the benefit of the committee, I would like to just perhaps go through each of the 4 tests briefly and spend a moment discussing each of them. So in terms of the intent of the official plan, the proposed detached dwelling is obviously a permitted land use under the rural area land use designation. And the detached dwelling and the variances requested, in my opinion, obviously respect the goals of the rural area designation, as well as the physical character of the existing neighborhood as outlined within section 224 of the official plan. The application provides for a single detached dwelling, which replaces the existing dwelling and does not add any additional dwelling or density to the existing infrastructure. In addition, the variances and expansion, albeit minor, of the existing footprint of the dwelling are proposed within the existing limits of the top of bank, as outlined by our geotechnical and shoreline consultant. It's also my opinion that the proposed variances are in keeping with the intent of the Greenbelt Plan, which does have an overlay on the property, as the policies respect development within proximity to the Lake Ontario shoreline. And the proposed development is strategically located outside of the environmental protection zone, as well as the stable slope erosion line, which is obviously noted on the site plan on this slide. As such, it's obviously my opinion that it meets the intent of the official plan, but also contributes to a continuation of built form and development features that contribute to this neighborhood on Ontoro Boulevard. In terms of the intent of the zoning bylaw, I'll go through each of the variances. So maximum lot coverage is obviously intended to assist in regulating the scale and massing of a building. In my opinion, the proposed increase in lot coverage is not considered to contribute negatively to the scale and massing for the proposed dwelling. It is noted again that the footprint of the dwelling is generally in keeping with the adjacent siting of dwellings in terms of setbacks and intended height requirements of the bylaw. And further, the proposed increases are not considered to result in a building that dominates or is out of character with the streetscape along Ontoro. In terms of the front yard setback, the front yard setback is intended to ensure that dwellings are compatible with the character and streetscape, as well as massing within a neighborhood. And in this instance, the proposed front yard setback aligns with the setbacks of the adjacent dwellings and is, in my opinion, fits in with the streetscape of the character for Ontoro Boulevard. For the side yard setbacks, obviously the intent is to ensure that there's adequate size and spacing relative to adjacent setbacks, and also that there's adequate space for access purposes and maintenance for a property, as well as adequate drainage. So again, while Ontario Boulevard is rural in nature, the existing site is narrower than many of the lots along Ontario Boulevard, and the associated newly constructed dwelling and the proposed setbacks are not out of character with the surrounding immediate neighborhood context. The new dwelling will result in a built form that, in my opinion, fits in with the streetscape, as well as from a massing perspective, as well as adequate side yard access for maintenance and drainage purposes is also available for the proposed dwelling. I will note that the side yard setbacks were also signed off by the Central Lake Ontario Conservation Authority in terms of access to the shoreline from Lake Ontario. Finally, in terms of the rear yard setback, this is to ensure that there's a consistent pattern of rear yards and that there's adequate space for outdoor amenity space. I will also note that the rear yard in this instance is actually not measured to the rear of the property line, but it's actually measured to the EP zone line, which, in my opinion, has no actual impact on whether or not there's actually overlook or massing, or it does not mitigate any of the existing rear yard conditions. As I noted, the rear yard on this dwelling essentially is identical to the existing rear yard of the property, and there's, in my opinion, no negative impacts in proceeding with that. In terms of obviously the development being minor in nature and appropriate and desirable, just as a brief summary, it's my opinion that the proposed variances for the detached dwelling are minor. Again, they will not create negative impacts within the context of the neighborhood. The typology is maintained, the setback, scale, massing are maintained relative to adjacent properties, and the environmental protection zone, along with its preservation and conservation policies, are being adhered to. And the proposed application minimizes the impacts associated with privacy, overlook, and shadowing on neighboring properties, as well as, in my opinion, promotes a development that is compatible in scale with the adjacent properties on the street. Next slide, please. Just as a brief final summary, I would like to go through the front elevations, all the elevations. So this is the front elevation of the dwelling. Again, it's, in my opinion, a modest two-story home that's appropriately sited on the lot. Next slide, please. This is the rear elevation. There's a walkout condition, obviously, on the basement due to the existing grading of the site. Next slide, please. These are the east and west elevations, respectively. Next slide, please. So I will note that obviously there's a planning justification report that I've submitted, and obviously I've read the town staff report, which do recommend approval of the variances. Again, I would note that support has been provided both from CLOCA as well as Durham Region Health from a technical perspective. My client has received a septic permit already for the property. As such, I would recommend to the committee that the application does meet the four tests under the Planning Act. Importantly, the development fits in with the existing streetscape and context of this neighborhood. I guess on that note, I'm before the committee, would be happy to answer any questions this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sarah, can I ask you, I'm not sure if the other committee members are going to want, can we leave this presentation up while we're asking the questions? Because I think there was a couple of extra pictures that were in this presentation that we didn't have in our package. If you don't mind keeping that, and then I'll open it up to the committee. Is there any questions of staff or the applicant? Cecil?
Yes, nice presentation there. Through the chair, I'm thinking that this should be the staff. I was just curious, there was a 50-year setback erosion line of approximately 20 meters. So is this 20 meter setback based on the size of the structure? That's one question.
For the chair, the setbacks, maybe you can go back to that slide, Sarah. So all those setbacks are a result of CLOCA policy. Has nothing to do with the size of the building. It's this CLOCA policy. So.
Okay. Well, that answers that question then. So based on my own calculations, am I correct to assume then that the lake is receding at a rate of about 0.4 meters per year? That is the 50-year erosion setback line of 20 meters, or approximately 20 meters. Is that a fair assumption of 0.4 meters per year?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question is, so there is a 50-year erosion setback line of 20 meters.
Correct.
So based on my own calculations, am I correct to assume that the lake is receding at a rate of about 0.4 meters per year?
I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. That's not something that I'm involved in. So it's more of a question for CLOCA, who isn't here. But no, I'm not entirely sure, Cecil.
Okay. Okay. It was just I just had another. I don't know whether the applicant can answer that question then.
Through you, Madam Chair. So again, I'm an urban planner. I'll be candid. I'm not a coastal engineer, but just for the benefit of the committee, the existing shore wall has been repaired. There was a bunch of works that were done, I believe, a couple of years ago prior to my client purchasing the property. The 50-year erosion hazard limit that you've noted, obviously that is a limit that's defined based on CLOCA policy, is my understanding. It's defined by CLOCA policy based on certain conditions and assuming certain criteria as it relates to the actual design of the existing water's edge and the shoreline. My client obviously being purchasing the property and in their due diligence and understanding the shore wall has been rebuilt with a proper retaining wall structure, it mitigates obviously the concern from the 50-year hazard limit to a level that's obviously acceptable to CLOCA. I can't speak on the technical details as it relates to, I don't know if it's 0.4 meters or 0.1 meters. I'll be candid, I don't know. But obviously we've had a many number of discussions with CLOCA, with our shoreline consultant as well, to get them to a point, obviously, where they were satisfied and comfortable with the limits that we were proposing.
Yes, and so this doesn't really pertain. Thank you very much for that answer. My other question doesn't really pertain to the minor variance in front of us, but just out of general understanding, I suspect. You were talking about the shoreline being reinforced, and I was wondering, what form did that take? Was it planting trees? Was it the structural reinforcement? How is shoreline wear being mitigated in this particular case?
Right. I've, as a planner that's worked on a number of these waterfront properties, both here in Durham, as far west as Oakville, when these shorelines are redone, they have to be done to a certain criteria, and they're typically rock walls, sometimes armor stone, sometimes there's a number of reinforcements that go into that. But yes, it's typically a rock wall design that's acceptable to the Conservation Authority.
Okay, thank you very much. I have no further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Cecil. Anyone else have any questions at all? Okay, I just had a couple if Mark or Wasif don't have any. For staff, there in the report that you gave us, there was mention of a previous minor variance application for this property. Was that work done prior to this project being taken on?
Madam Chair, no, the work never commenced.
Okay. And in the report, there's mention, and in the diagram, it shows that there's going to be an above ground pool. And I'm just curious, is CLOCA aware that there is the plan to have an above ground pool as part of this design?
Yes, CLOCA is aware because it was shown on the plans, which they approved.
Okay, perfect. And my last question is, one of the letters that we were given, it was a letter of support. Was it dated September 2021? I had noticed there was a little bit of writing in there, and I'm wondering whether it's an old letter of support and whether these people still are in support.
That is correct. It was dated that because this was a 2021 application. So the variances haven't really changed too much. It's just, as Paul alluded to, there was a lot of back and forth with CLOCA in the Durham Region Health Department to get to where we are today.
Do you know those people? Are they either in attendance tonight, or have they communicated since then that their support still exists?
Staff have not received anything. I don't know if the applicant could speak to anything further, but staff haven't received anything otherwise.
Okay. And I apologize. I did have two other questions. I'm so sorry. The houses on either side of the property, have they both been developed?
Yes, correct. Both sides are developed with homes. Which would that be? Just one second. 58 and 52 on Toro, they both have homes. And in fact, the home at 52 is even closer to the shoreline.
Okay. And then I just wanted to clarify, Paul, when you were speaking, you had mentioned EP a couple times. That's environmentally protected. That's what that means, right?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, my apologies. I have a tendency to speak in too much planning lingo. That does stand for Environmental Protection Zone. Okay,
perfect. Okay, thank you very much. That's all I have. Anyone from committee, is there any questions before I open it up to the floor at all? Okay, I'm seeing none. So is anybody in it? Sorry, Wasif, I apologize.
No, that's okay. So through the chair to the applicant, thanks for the presentation, Paul. For 58, and maybe it's a question for yourself or maybe even the city planner, but is 58 developed, and what's their front setback like right now?
Sure. Just bear with me, Wasif. I just want to pull it up on the survey plan.
So the chair 50. Oh, sorry, Paul. I was just going to say it is developed. I think the setback's around 9 meters, but correct me if I'm wrong.
That does seem, sorry, through you, Madam Chair, it does seem approximately correct. It is slightly closer to the Lake Ontario shoreline, but just for the benefit of the committee, yes, that property is developed and there's an existing 1.5 story brick dwelling on that property.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any further questions from committee before I open it up? Okay, seeing none. So is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak either for or against this application?
Madam Chair, we have 2 registered participants. I have Daniel and Gary.
Okay, Daniel, would you like to speak first?
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'm Daniel Robichaud. I have no comments specific. Simply, I'm here in attendance to support the project. I am a neighbor. I live immediately across the street from the subject property.
Okay, so would you be at like 59, 57, or 55? Is that?
I'm at 59.
59. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much, Daniel. And also, Gary, did you want to speak either for or against?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any comment other than that I'm in complete support of the application. And I own number 16 on Toro Boulevard, which is further east of this property.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. So, Sarah, there was just the 2 that were in attendance to speak either for or against?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, can I please look for a motion on this application? Cecil.
Madam Chair, I move to approve minor variance application A3221 for 56 on Toro Boulevard, subject to all conditions as stated for staff, as it is minor in nature. It's desirable and appropriate for the use and development of the lands, and it's in keeping with the general intent of the bylaws and the official plan. I move to approve.
Okay, and do I have a seconder? Wasif, thank you very much. Is there any discussion on the motion at all?
No.
Okay, seeing none, can I please have a vote for those in favor of the application? Okay, all are in favor. So application number A32-21 has been approved subject to the 5 conditions outlined in the staff report and the 20-day appeal period.
Thank you, members of the committee.
Thank you. Okay, so we are now going to move on to application A21-22 for 518 Poplar Avenue, submitted by Neil Yap. Okay, sorry, just opening up my pages. The variances requested are to permit a maximum garage width of 9.1 meters, and the bylaw is 6.1 meters. To permit a maximum driveway width of 6.9 meters, and the bylaw is 6.1 meters. And to permit a maximum lot coverage of 27%, and the bylaw is 25% for all lots equal to or greater than 603.85 meters squared. Eric, can I please confirm that notice was served and have any responses being received?
Notice was served and no responses were received.
Okay, for the applicant, the staff has written a report recommending approval of this application subject to 2 conditions as outlined in the staff report. Those conditions are that the owner applicant obtain approval of site plan application SP3-22 to the satisfaction of the town, or this decision shall become null and void. And 2, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here?
Hi, good evening. Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you very much. Have you received a copy of the report?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and if I can please ask you to introduce yourself and let committee know any questions or let us know anything about the application, please.
Yep, certainly. Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Neil Yap. My wife and I are planning to build our dream house home in this neighborhood. We like the neighborhood. We have a 3-year-old daughter that also likes the lake, so it's a good location for us. We've endeavored onto this project to maintain or to meet all the bylaws. There were a couple that we weren't able to. The home that we're planning on building is consistent with homes in the neighborhood. So I believe that it's these minor variance bylaws that we are seeking relief from are also minor in nature, and I'll open it up for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Does the committee have any questions for the applicant or staff? Mark?
Yes, Madam Chair, through you to staff. So the relief requested regarding the driveway width, it's approximately additional 30% increase compared to the bylaw. Is that typical for the area to have driveways approximately 7 meters wide, Eric?
Through you, Madam Chair. With this type of driveway design where the garage faces the interior side lot line, it is common that a driveway would need to exceed the maximum driveway width. So, yes.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions at this point, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Mark. Any other committee members? Wasif?
Just a follow-up to that through you, Madam Chair, to the staff. Eric, on that, is that 6.9 measured at the widest point of the driveway?
Through you, Madam Chair. The 6.9, yeah, it is to the widest part. So where it turns, it allows for vehicles to maneuver in and out of the garage.
Okay. So in some sections, thereby some sections of the driveway will actually not be 6.9.
That is
right?
correct. The actual street frontage portion of the driveway is even less than 6.1, which is the max.
Okay. That's what I just want to confirm. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions from committee at all? Mark?
Sorry, I misstated my question. Madam Chair, through you to staff, it was the garage width that was 30% more than the bylaw. Eric, can you comment on how typical that is?
Through you, Madam Chair, we have done various variances for increased garage widths. I can't recall off the top of my head if we've gone to the 9 before. I do recall a few 8s. I just want to point out too, though, like a portion of the garage is actually part of the dwelling. So the way it's been designed. So from a staff perspective, like the whole point of having a maximum garage width is so that you don't have garage doors overwhelming the streetscape. But when you have a design with the garage where it faces the interior of the lot, it avoids that. So staff don't see that as problematic.
Okay, thank you for the clarity.
Okay, any other questions from committee at all? Okay, I have a couple of questions as well. So Eric, as you just mentioned, the side of the garage is what faces Poplar. I know there's other areas in Ajax that's a common design, and there was made mention in the staff report that it's a design that's used. Is that design used in this area of Ajax? Is it common to see that style down there?
Madam Chair, yes, that's correct. To be honest, the only times I have seen it is within this area.
Okay.
Madam Chair, just to also clarify, it's the applicant. The 518A Poplar has a very similar design. That's the neighbor to us. So it is, as Eric mentioned, in that neighborhood, similar designs.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate the clarification. And I did have, I think you've already asked this, and in my questions I had is the garage attached to the house. Can I confirm that? Yes, it is attached.
Yes, it is attached.
Okay, that's all the questions that I have. Any further questions from committee before I open it? Okay, seeing none, is there anyone in attendance here to speak either for or against this application? I don't see any extra. Well, there's one other speaker. No, that's the next application. I don't see anybody on the screen, so I'm going to assume that there is none. Can I please look for a motion on this application? Sorry, Mark. Thanks.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I recommend approval of application A21/22, seeing that it's minor in nature and meets the remaining tests. Recommend to approve.
Okay, and a seconder, please. Thank you, Wasif. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, may I have a vote for all those in favor of approving the application? Thank you. All are in favor. So application number A21-22 has been approved subject to the 2 conditions as outlined in the staff report and the 20-day appeal period. Thank you. Okay. And our last application for this evening is application A22-22 and A23-22. They're being held together, and it is for the addresses 35, 37, and 39 Harwood Avenue South and the application has been submitted by Top Dot Architects. The variances that are requested for these two applications is to permit a minimum setback from the interior side lot line, the common lot line between the two properties of 0.0 meters. The bylaw is 7.5 meters. In the report there, I just want to make note of the note that was in the report that we received that says the existing buildings located on the subject properties are set back 0.3 meters from the interior side lot line, the common lot line between the two properties. These existing setbacks are deemed to be legal and non-compliant. Okay, Eric, can I confirm that notice was served and have there been any responses received?
Notice was served and no responses were received.
Okay, great. And for the applicant, staff has written a report recommending approval of this application subject to 3 conditions as outlined in the staff report. The conditions are that the subject variances apply only to the properties municipally known as 35 Harwood Avenue South and 37 and 39 Harwood Avenue South, and the existing buildings as illustrated on the drawings submitted with these applications, or this decision shall become null and void. 2, that the subject variance shall not apply to any future building additions and or new buildings on the subject properties. And finally, 3, that the owner applicant obtain all necessary building permits from the town's building services section, or this decision shall become null and void. Is the applicant here?
Yes, good evening.
And have you received a copy of the staff report?
Yes, Madam Chair, we received that and we read the conditions.
Okay, perfect. If I can please ask you to introduce yourself and let us know if you have any questions or comments in regards to this application.
My name is Hamia Agari-Mibadi. I'm the architect of the project with Top Dot Architects. I think it's a very minor in nature. The owner wants to connect both buildings to each other. They are already having 0.3 meter setback from inner side. They just want to connect these two buildings to use them as one for the winner optical, if I'm not wrong. We reviewed that with the planners. We try to meet their expectation in terms of design, and the only variance we were looking for is the setback.
Okay, thank you very much. Does committee have any questions or comments for staff or the applicant? Cecil?
Through you, Madam Chair. Not sure how relevant this question might be, but I was just wondering whether there was a need to consider any impact of parking, given that this change is occurring on Harwood Avenue, which is a main artery, and that question I would perhaps direct the staff.
Through you, Madam Chair, the proposed building connection does not impact any of the parking spaces on either property, so no, there's no impact.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you, Cecil. Any other committee members? Is there any questions? Okay, I have a question. I think this will be for staff. And just when I'm looking at the land and when I look at those buildings, there is what appears to be a vacant piece of land between the two buildings. Is this, am I correct in, am I looking at the right spot? And what's happening with that piece of what appears to be vacant land between the two buildings?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So 35 Harwood Avenue South, that's the northern one, has a building, and then the other piece is 37 and 39. It has 2 addresses. So yeah, there's a building, and then right south of that, it's vacant, but it's still part of the same property.
Okay, so that land in there belongs to, is that part of the 35 address or the 37?
Part of the 39, the 37 and 39.
It is. Okay. Yeah. So it's part of that address. So this is going to join those buildings by putting more in, like filling in that space.
Exactly.
Okay. Thank you. Just needed to clarify that visual in my head. Before I open it to the floor, does committee have any questions or comments they'd like to make? Okay, seeing none, is there anyone in attendance who would like to speak either for or against the application? I'm going to say I don't see anybody there. May I please ask for a motion on the application? Cecil.
Madam Chair, I move to approve minor variance application A22, A23/22 for 35, 37, 39 Harwood Avenue South, subject to all staff conditions as it is minor in nature, desirable and appropriate for the use and development of our lands, and is in keeping with the general intent of the bylaws and the official plan. I move to approve.
Thank you. And do I have a seconder? Wasif, thank you very much. Any discussion on the motion at all? Okay, seeing none, may I please have a vote for all those in favor of approving this application? Okay, all are in favor. Application number A22-22 and A23-22 have been approved and subject to the 3 conditions as outlined in the staff report and the 20-day appeal period. Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you so much. And have a good evening, member of committee and Madam Chair.
You as well. Thank you very much. Okay, so that takes us to number 6, other business. Does anybody have any other business? Okay, seeing none. Number 7, may we motion to adjourn? A seconder, or all those in favor? Okay, all those in favor, we are adjourned.